Greetings, loyal sound advice, hearing friendly business podcast listeners. It's Teresa Barnes, RN, your podcast host. Looking forward to hearing from you. And also, I'm glad you're here listening, looking forward to hearing from me. Today, we're going to cover why your hearing matters. And just to get a perspective on what it would be like if you were to lose it. And of course, some tips on how to recognize a person who has hearing loss. If you wait until the end or towards the end, just sit back and have a nice cup of tea like Yogai elderberry lemon balm that helps decrease stress and increase your immune system that we all need right now as we're dealing with these stressful times. Or if you happen to be listening at nighttime, a really great glass of red wine will do because it vasodilates or makes the blood vessels bigger. And that also decreases stress and it allows the ears to work better. So getting into the numbers and the stats, which you guys know I like, 20% of the population are dealing with hearing loss. Or at least a portion of that valuable sense is lost. The United States government Health and Human Resource Department states that sight and hearing are the two senses that determine the quality of someone's life. Hearing loss affects every age, every race, every gender, and every socioeconomic class. So it doesn't matter whether you're rich or whether you're poor or whether you're middle class. It still affects whether you're hearing. So just make sure that you can learn how to keep it if you've got it. And if you've got it, how you can improve it and how you can improve the conditions worldwide, but especially right here in the United States, because that's where I live. And then as we move forward, we'll do the global, but around the world, I hate to make this analogy, but just like COVID, a lot of the other countries actually are ahead of us in reference to addressing this disability. And so they already are accommodating and acknowledge a lot of this particular thing. So why do we need to hear? Well, we need to hear because hearing is one of our most important senses. You just heard vision and hearing. But hearing is the first sense we have, it's the last sense we have, and it's the quickest sense that we have. It functions in 0.05 seconds from the moment the sound comes to our ears and processes through our brain. So it's pretty darn quick. So if you are unfortunately dealing with somebody that may be in coma, or it's somebody who's really sick, perhaps they have COVID, and if you're allowed to go into the ICU unit, then just know that that person can hear you. And they might not be able to respond, but they do hear you. So say whatever you need to get out so that if you're left behind and you don't choose to go up to, to pass on, then it's the kind of thing that just know that will relieve your burden if you've got anything that you're holding on to. So that person can hear. But most importantly, hearing connects us to people, enabling us to communicate in a way that none of our other senses can achieve. And as the famed 20th century activist and educator Helen Keller once said, blindness cuts you off from things, but deafness cuts you off from people. It's now the 21st century. So Teresa Barnes, the educator and the activist, is saying let's up or spread hearing awareness. We can even up it, hearing awareness, which I like, or spreading. So I'd love for you to send me an email and let me know whether you like improving, whether you like spreading, or whether you like upping hearing awareness for the 21st century. because I'm a former emergency room department nurse, and I like for life to be taken care of fairly quickly. I do have the thinker mentality also, so I'm detail oriented, but I like for people to do this. So send me an email at T for Teresa at hearing, HEARING, the letter U.com, because it's all about you and what you're going to do to help the hearing loss awareness get forward in the 21st century, and also what you can do for your own hearing. And I'll send you a free mini course if you send me your email, available online to increase your understanding better, just in case you miss me. But I am on all the social medias as well as YouTube as well. Just look for Teresa Barnes, RN. Although it was true during Helen's time that the greater the hearing loss, the less the person was connected, now in the 21st century, we have a lot of apps that actually help improve that if people implement them. And that's the catch, where we're not quite getting through how people need to be proactive for this disability rather than reactive, like they did with the wheelchairs. The more severely our ability to communicate is affected. So the greater the hearing loss, the more severely our ability is to communicate is affected. The impact on daily life of milder forms of hearing loss should never be underestimated or ignored. And especially since we're wearing masks these days, because for those of us who have had hearing loss for a while, we depend on lip reading. And we can't lip read with the mask on. And then if somebody has that really soft voice, which some people with hearing loss like to say they're mumbling, the truth is we with hearing loss just didn't have in our hearing aids, so therefore we couldn't really hear as well. Our ability to communicate with other people is heavily dependent on our ability to understand speech, which is one of the most complex sounds we have to listen to. Without good hearing in both ears, understanding what a person is saying needs more concentration and can be very, very tiring, especially if several people are talking at one time, or even talking in general. You're trying to keep up with the conversation. They may be moved on to the next sentence or the next topic, and you're still caught on the last topic, or you're still on sentence 1 when maybe they're on sentence 5 or 10. And then that background noise, that's something that the business owners have control of. And I am proactive. So if I have a lot of background noise, I will normally go up and ask them to turn the sound down so I can hear better. So misunderstanding what has been said can be very frustrating and tough trading too. So there's a new word for you, tough trading. So, because it is tough these days for both the listener and the speaker, and can make socializing with friends and family gatherings difficult. So we're getting ready to get into holidays. So there are a couple different apps that you can download. One of them is AVA, AVA, where it will actually process the closed captioning for you and your family right there on your smartphone, to also include the person. If you're going to do like Dr. Fauci and you're going to do online, I do have also an app for Zoom. So reach out to me at T as in Teresa Barnes at hearingyou.com. I hesitated there for a moment, but you hung in there with me and kept listening. So misunderstanding what can be said, it can be frustrating for both the listener and the speaker. And so we want to increase or decrease that frustration and increase the socialization. So too often, this leads to avoiding situations or increasing reliance on the partner or the friend with better hearing. And that becomes frustrating for the person with better hearing. And also, it's kind of an embarrassment if you're wearing your hearing aids and the other person is not. So isolation, which is what people do when they remove themselves from a situation, like if they're choosing to be at UCSD or near UCSD, and they're online, then they're choosing to avoid a particular home situation that they may be in where they can't concentrate as well. But that isolation does cause depression, and that's medically sound. So you want to connect with people on a personal level. And so even if it's a Zoom call where you're chatting back and forth, where you're not sitting there just in Zoom land, watching some program or listening to some presentation. So where you're chatting back and forth with a person. And also FaceTime is another great one because you really connect with the person right there, I'm going to say in their living room or in their workplace or wherever they are. So we with hearing loss have a lot to share with people on how to survive this alone, stressful time, as we've been dealing with it for years. So I'm sorry that you guys are having to suffer it now, but at the same time, maybe that will give you more compassion after we have the lockdown again, and then as we open up again. So I know the United States is going to survive. That's my rah for the day. Somehow or another we'll get through this. So relationships can quickly begin to suffer with the strain of trying to cope with hearing loss, even to the point of complete breakdown in communication when a hearing loss is allowed to go too far before seeking professional help and support. Most people think that hearing loss is an older person's problem. Well, here are two stats. There are 2.2 million Afghan veterans that came back with hearing loss. That's a known fact, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then here's another story. There's a book called Shouting Won't Help, by Catherine Booten. She was a classic example at 30 years old of someone who was at the top of her game. I mean, she was at the top. She was working in media there in New York, and refused to listen to her doctor that told her to get hearing aids. And I don't know why Catherine didn't do that. I've been trying to get her on my podcast for a while, but for some reason, I don't know, maybe her hearing's gotten worse and she doesn't want to do that. But her hearing became so damaged, it was impossible to reverse the damage, not to mention the workplace confusion she was in, because she's sitting there in meetings, team meetings, before COVID, and not able to communicate, and I guess maybe too ashamed to let people, and I'm putting words in Catherine's mouth because I've heard that from other people, to think that at 30 years old, she was losing her hearing and she didn't speak out. Well, for those of you in the workplace, whether you're working at home or whether you are working in a physical place right now, it is an ADA, American Disabilities Act, Amended Act 2008, that they accommodate you. Yes. And that's not just for the deaf. That's also for people with what we're still called hard of hearing. And so with the COVID and some of the virus medications that some people have already taken, so there's not much you can do about that, but some of the people are still yet to take, that is something that we need to take a look at, because many more people will have hearing loss than just the 65 million currently. So it's vital now more than ever to get hearing friendly training for your team, to increase their listening skills, to let me help you with consultations, know what you need to do to get your Zoom meetings up to speed so that there's not a lawsuit, because technically you're not ADA compliant. And especially if 1 in 5 of the Americans have hearing loss, and if you've got Americans on your Zoom call. So, or let me increase your personal level with tuning into the hearing awareness community. Again, send me your email at t@hearingyou.com. And I will send you a free mini course to increase your hearing knowledge for comprehension, effective communication tips, and some of your compliance, both your rights as a person and your responsibilities as a business. So let's be proactive about this one. Hearing for experiencing sounds around us. Yep, that's the next chapter or the next section here. Hearing, experiencing sounds around us. As important as communicating with other people certainly is, hearing matters for all the pleasures it can bring us. Hearing Teresa Barnes is one. Just a little plug there. And the difference it can make to our quality of life. Listening to music, to television, radio, and going to the cinemas or the movies when they reopen, or the theaters, attending a place of worship, going to meetings to learn, or to simply for pleasure, like eating at restaurants with your friends, as well as listening to the sounds of nature, can be affected by your state of hearing. Which we as individuals have different interests and different needs, these sounds are part of enjoying life to the fullest extent. I know I went to a symphony one time, and I went to with a symphony buff or a symphony foodie or symphonette, whatever you want to call him. And he wanted to know if I heard a certain sound that was playing, or crescendo is what it's called, but playing throughout the entire program that we went to. I looked at him and I said, "No, Bob, I don't hear that. But what I'm hearing, I'm really enjoying." So even though I have the 57% hearing loss, I enjoyed hearing the symphony, what I heard. And they didn't have assistive listening devices then. And I don't think I was wearing hearing aids either. But what I heard, I enjoyed. But what I enjoyed more was watching the passion of the different musicians perform. So I was having a different hearing experience because I was visualizing how the music was sounding. So there's another like little inside tip that you can use. If you're in a situation when you can't hear, use your eyes to see or your eyes to hear. Many people do use their eyes to hear, and I do too. So that's the reason why the masks are a little bit of a challenge for those of us that are deaf or hard of hearing. Yet you may easily the enjoyment of sound can be spoiled or made impossible by unassisted hearing loss. Now, that's what I printed out or wrote out this morning, but you just heard that I went off target and I showed you a different way where you can enjoy it, even if you can't hear as well as say Bob could, or any other person. But you can benefit from the hearing technologies and also from your personal devices, and I like to call them medical prosthetic devices. So can you imagine a person with no legs scooting around on their butt all day because they don't have their prosthetic limbs on? Well, that's what it's like when you're not wearing your hearing aids. You're scooting around on your butt all day long and making all kinds of mistakes. So keep your hearing aids in if you need to wear them. And it will, medically, your brain will shrink 1 centimeter per year if you do not wear them. So keep your brain and your nerves active. The dependence of good hearing for personal safety. Yes, personal safety, as well as business safety and business productivity shouldn't be taken for granted. We often are more likely to hear a potential threat to our safety before it becomes visible, if it can be seen at all. Crossing the road, or skiing down a ski slope, driving a vehicle, riding a bike. You can't hear the person behind you, say, passing on your right or your left, or even walking. in the workplace or public building, and the awareness of another person approaching who may mean us harm, especially from behind, are all part of our daily lives. Even constant not being able to have good hearing to protect ourselves from personal safety and physical well-being. And also, if we have, the other day, my personal safety alarm went off, and I was near someone that was not even a house away, and they could not hear how loud my personal safety alarm was. My safety alarm went off accidentally, so luckily it wasn't anything I needed any help with. And you also can balance hearing to know the direction from which it's coming if you wear your medical prosthetic hearing devices rather than scooting around just on one side. Um, and anyone with better hearing in one ear is better than the other, always has great difficulty localizing the sound. I did some gardening yesterday, and I have an annoying dog that lives next door to me. I did see him through the glass. And then I told the other person to just ignore the dog, that the dog was there because I saw him. But later on, I heard some barking, and I wondered if it was that dog and the annoying dog next door. And no, the other person said that it was a dog that was at a distance. So it was really nice to have someone that could hear better than me that was there, because sometimes, just like everybody else, I sometimes react to that dog because it's annoying when you're in your own backyard and you're just trying to have a peaceful, relaxing gardening afternoon. So very unbalanced hearing, such as no hearing in one ear, to make any sense of the direction for sounds impossible, could be a safety risk in some situations. I mean, if the lion's attacking on the left and you can't hear the left, then you're going to have less time to escape or get away. Hearing and working. So in the workplace, the portion of people with hearing loss who are unemployed is higher than in the general population. Untreated hearing loss can have a number of consequences in the workplace, like decrease in productivity is one of them. Conflict resolution can be reduced if the employees know that somebody has a hearing loss. And hearing-friendly training is done and implemented. And many of those within the workplace are struggling with hearing loss with unnecessary experiences. I kind of flubbed over that one too, so here I am. So thanks for hanging in. Reduced opportunities for promotion or work at a level below your skills or your knowledge or even your experience. So the government does federally subsidize when businesses hire people with disabilities. So, and they also subsidize when you hire veterans. And they also, just for anyone that has a disability. So see if you can get some extra money during these stressful times by hiring someone with a disability like hearing loss, because we are very loyal workers too. Working life will be much less stressful if your hearing loss is managed professionally and the most appropriate technology is prescribed, it's fitted and routinely worn. So I suggest that you go to a hearing aid, even a dispenser, or preferably an audiologist, so a doctor of audiology that can prescribe your hearing aids. So I don't often recommend the ones online, even though I do recommend getting MD hearing test online. And if financial assistance is needed, then you can purchase the equipment at work. There is an a program called Access to Work Scheme that may be able to assist. And also here in the United States, there is the Starkey Foundation. They will help you get your hearing aids. And if you're over 65, here's a little plug for Humana. They will provide your hearing aids, and so that's one of the things that I look at. My Costco hearing aids cost me, I think, $1,006, and I would just have a deductible of $990. So I'd be saving over $750 or so by having my Humana life insurance. So hearing and mental health. So we are dealing with stressful times. I did hear that a person who is hearing well was suffering from depression over stress from school, but also because he was isolated with the COVID recently. So in recent years, a considerable amount of scientific evidence has been published highlighting the connection between hearing loss and mental health. It is clear that there is an association between unassisted hearing loss and cognitive decline and dementia and Alzheimer's. Why this should be the case is still not clear. Much research is being undertaken to try and establish how and why hearing loss and cognitive health are connected. However, it's a known fact. So let them research it, let them figure it out. But in the meantime, get your hearing aids and get your different places that you socialize in your community to be ADA compliant. I am available for consultation. And yes, I can Zoom with the best of them. So we can do it that way to keep us both COVID safe. And so there is an important research finding published in what's called the Lancet in 2017, stating 1 in 3 cases of dementia could be prevented if people manage a number of lifestyle factors in middle age. Middle age is classified from 40 to 65, and that includes hearing loss. Unmanaged hearing loss adds to the brain cognitive load and can lead to social isolation and depression. Good reasons to care for your hearing and watch for signs that your hearing may be changing. And in just the same way as you care for your eyesight and your dental health, particularly after the age of 40, hearing tests should be done as a routine, as part of the health care, as sight tests and dental checks and mammograms and every other test we get. The early signs of hearing loss. The signs that hearing may be changing vary with individuals and with different lifestyles, but the most usual are, and here you go, this is what you've been waiting for: increasing difficulty in understanding speech in noisy background situations such as pubs or restaurants. Following, number 2, is following conversations needs more of a concentrated effort and possibly lip reading, especially when several people are talking. Number 3, needing a higher volume setting for TV or for any other social media, but not always making the speech quite clear, and having to use captioning. So if you're really enjoying captioning on TV, which it is available, then just know, when out shopping, not always understanding a shop assistant or say at a supermarket checkout. So I would love if any of you have Cougar, Bonds, Food for Less, Winco, any sort of connections like that, I would love. So again, T as in Teresa, at hearing, HEARING, the letter U.com. And people who know you well will remark about your hearing not being as good as it used to be. And so please, if you are a 40-year-old dealing with your teenagers right now, then do get your medical prosthetic hearing devices so that you can help them and be aware of what they're saying and not add to their frustration. They're going through enough right now. I have a lot of empathy for the teenagers and the students, and well, really for everyone, but also just for this trying time. It's tempting to dismiss signs like this, but both you and your family and the workplace will find an easier lifestyle if you just take a few simple steps. For all the reasons above, your hearing is so important to your well-being, the quality of your life. Hearing tests are straightforward, they're easily arranged, and are normally without any cost to you. The sooner you act, the better will be your outcome, both for you and for those close to you. If you need any help or advice or just want to talk, you can, if you're in the UK, you can connect with Hearing Link Help Desk, or you can text 760-717-8190. And there's also the Hearing Loss Association here in the United States that does offer support as well. For your next step to living well with hearing loss. If you're looking for some answers and seeking support, or simply need to talk to someone who understands, just ask. And so you can ask via text 760-717-8190, or you can reach out via email. And I am an expert in hearing awareness, so I will be able to lead you to the right direction if I'm not the right person. So get tuned into this hearing loss for the 21st century. And what to do about it. So what do you think we should do about hearing loss? Get the information, get the support and advice on your first step to take. Because in the UK, it's estimated that about 11 million people in the UK have hearing loss, which makes it the second most common disability in the United Kingdom. So Harry and Megan, I would love your help here in USA. And the United States, according to the Johns Hopkins study, it is 1 in 5 Americans with the hearing loss disability. Take that extrapolation of our current population means that 65 million people have hearing loss in the United States, which makes hearing loss the leading disability in the United States. And I don't care what other kind of disability you've got, in all probability, if you live long enough, then you will probably get hearing loss because the bones do break down. And it used to be known as just an older person's problem or health disease, but it's 1 in 3 when you're over 65. So do what you need to do. And I do have courses available on hearing awareness at Hearing Awareness Academy to help you know what foods to eat to improve and reduce your hearing loss. There are only 3.4 million people in wheelchairs. You can see them. And there's 1.1 million blind. And the majority with hearing loss are not deaf, but rather classified as hard of hearing, which is mild to profound hearing loss. Thank you for listening, for tuning in. It's been such a pleasure, a little bit longer than I expected, but hopefully you'll get through it. And remember, it's at YouTube too. If you want to see a picture of me while I'm doing this, just Teresa Barnes RN on YouTube for my studio link. Hearinglink.org will be put in the show notes. Help me put this together. And such a great article that they offered. And for offering services in the UK, that we know in the spring of 2020, the Oxford University was supposed to not allow traditional clapping, like this kind of clapping, but for graduation. But rather, the Oxford graduating class was going to have to implement the deaf applause, which is nothing more than raising your hands up, shaking your wrist, and all your fingers are up, just like I'm doing right here. And if you're listening to me, then you can see me on YouTube again. But it is also available on Hear Communication, H-E-R, Communication, singular, COMMUNICATION.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure. And remember, you can always reach out for any questions. And don't you just love the sunshine that's shining? And we will get through this together.